Hello and welcome to the Cage of You podcast, where it's the morning after UFC 210 in Buffalo, New York, and, well, I've got plenty to talk about after those two final fights last night. Starting with the main event, as we should, DC, Daniel Cormier retained the light heavyweight title after beating Anthony Rumble Johnson in the rematch of their bout from a couple of years ago, and history repeated itself remarkably, actually. Back when they fought the first time, the first round uh, was special because Rumble hit one of those trademark blows to Cormier, really rocked him. To be honest, Cormier is the only man who's really been able to stand up after taking one of those shots. But yeah, that was the story. The first round, Rumble delivered that huge shot, rocked Cormier, and then in the second round, DC, the ability he has, managed to finish it with a rear naked choke. Last night, many months on, both guys older, more experienced. Rumble wins the first round, 10-9 on all three scorecards. And then in the second round, DC wraps him up with a rear naked choke to wins the title. It's, like I say, it's pretty remarkable. The same thing happened twice. Lightning struck twice in this one. But obviously the big story is not the fact, really, that Cormier won the belt, retained the belt even. But Rumble Johnson, at the age of just 33, pretty much in his prime in the UFC, has retired from the sport. So in the press conference afterwards, he's going after some other major opportunity that he's got. There's rumours it's the NFL. I don't think that's accurate, but whatever it may be, he's out of the UFC, which is, it's sad really, because Rumble is such an entertaining guy to watch. He's the king pretty much of the early knockout. One of the biggest hitters the UFC's ever seen for sure. I still get shivers watching the Glover Teixeira knockout. That massive uppercut is just scary power. So it's a real shame that he's out of the UFC. And also, it does mean that we are never going to see, or likely never going to see, Rumble Johnson versus John Jones, which is a real shame, because Rumble is pretty much the only guy who John Jones has not beaten, and will be the only minor asterisk against John Jones's career at the end of it, really. So yeah, a real shame that Rumble Johnson has decided to hang up the gloves. But what can you say about Daniel Cormier? Retained again, and just what a fighter. And it's like I say, 38 years of age, not the youngest guy, and he really doesn't get the credit he deserves. For some reason, people just don't like him. But I think just because John Jones he's such a cult hero, really, despite everything he's done wrong, But John Jones and Cormier are just so linked, they're basically tied at the hip at this point. And because Jones is the favourite, Cormier usually gets a bit of stick from the fans, and it's really not necessary. He's such a nice guy, he's suffered so much heartbreak throughout his life. His father died when he was young, or younger anyway. He's 14 years ago, his daughter died. His very young daughter passed away, unfortunately. He's suffered so much, but, he's fought through, been to the Olympics, an incredible athlete, incredible wrestler, and, he's been a light heavyweight champion for quite a while now, and, the only blemish against his career, really, is that loss to John Jones, and who can fault him for that? And John Jones, obviously, incredible. On that note, I think DC is probably the most underrated champion of all time, or certainly the one who's deserves all the credit and probably doesn't get it. And that's a real shame. I don't know how much he really cares about that, but, just credit to DC. An incredible guy, incredible fighter. And it looks like we're going to get John Jones versus DC 2, which you can't not get excited for. The first fight, Jones was incredible. The first guy pretty much to take DC down, did it a couple of times, and in the end it was pretty conclusive. But, it's a couple of years on, both guys. Well, DC is certainly a better fighter, I would say. Jones, obviously, we don't know. He's had that year out. Don't really know what shape he's going to be in. I'm assuming he's going to be as good as ever. He's basically a super athlete, But still, that's a rematch everyone wants to see, and it's the only logical fight outside of perhaps Jimmy Manuwa that makes sense for the light heavyweight crowd, and for sure, pay-per-view buys, it's going to get him. So Look forward to that, probably in the summer. So now let's talk about the co-main event of the night, which was Gegard Mousasi versus Chris Weidman. At the weigh-in, Joe Rogan called this one of the most important middleweight fights there's ever been in the UFC, and I think he had a point. It's not for a title, it's not an eliminator or an interim belt fight, but Chris Weidman, just been up there for so long, been around the top of the rankings. Got those wins against Silva, former champion himself, and you've got Mousasi, who's kind of this. I don't like to use the word up and come because he's been there for quite a while, but he's just been consistently going up the rankings, and he's not far away from a title fight. You'd imagine, although obviously it is a little bit stacked and chaotic up there. It's just a shame that last night the fight ended how it did. Another second round stoppage in this one, but I mean it was just a mess, just a complete mess. For me, Mousasi was winning the fight. I think for sure. I mean, you just had to look at the two guys in the press conference after. Mousasi was pretty much unscathed, really. Weidman looked like he took a real beating. But if you've not seen the fight, I would recommend you go watch it back, because the stoppage is just, like I say, it's just a mess. It's a real blunder from the ref. And I mean, we'll get onto the commission because it's a joke, to be honest with you. The UFC hasn't been in New York for long, but some changes really have to be made. Mousasi was getting some boos at the end for taking the win. I don't buy that. I don't think Mousasi. For me, there were two legal knees, so Mousasi's really not done anything wrong. He's been within the rules, and he's got every right to celebrate the win. I don't blame either of the fighters, really. There's a few people saying Weidman was just trying to be a little bit clever by putting the hands down when he took the two knees to make them illegal. If that's the case, I suppose you've got to use the rules to your advantage. But, he looked in quite a bad way to me, to be honest. I don't know if he would have been able to survive that round, even if nothing had happened. I'm pretty sure Mousasi would have won the fight. So I don't have any problem with either of the two fighters there. However, the referee, he's got to take some of the blame. He made the error. He called it illegal straight away. That's his judgment. You've got to respect his judgment on the in the octagon. He's got the best view of anyone. He's got this one wrong. And yeah, you can blame the ref for that for sure. And I'm sure he's got a bit of talking to, but these things happen. As a ref, you ref so many bouts. Mistakes are going to happen. In every sport, referees make mistakes. The problem I have with it is that he goes out and they have the replay technology. It's on pay-per-view. We have all the technology in the world. We have replays, and the commission will not allow the replay to be used, which is absolutely ridiculous. It really is. The replay show clearly it was, well, I won't say clearly, but they were legal. The knees that Mousasi used were legal. The fight should have been allowed to go on. Weidman was not supposed to be given the 5-minute break he was promised by the ref. But so much time had passed and everything, and obviously the replays, the New York State Athletic Commission says in their rulebook that the replays cannot be used to change a decision, which, I suppose by the letter of the law, then the decision was right, and Weidman was clearly down for more than 10 seconds, and blah blah blah. But it's just, I just don't understand why these commissions have to have such idiotic rules. Like, if you have the technology there, you've clearly got the technology there. Every UFC event for years and years and years has had the technology there. You get replays on your screen instantly. Why a referee would not be allowed to use that replay to influence a decision or to make a fight go on or to end a fight is absolutely ridiculous and potentially dangerous in for the future. If this is the present, the setting, maybe not this situation, but in a different situation where, the referee calls something legal, it was illegal, and but it's a close one, and they go to the monitors, and they can't use that decision. If a fight gets hurt, then there's going to be a serious issue, and for me, it's going to be the fault of the commission, and something's got to really change. I know the UFC has only recently been in New York, but yeah, there's got to be some kind of reform there. Which takes us on to one of the other fights in the main card, Cynthia Calvillo. It looks very, very good, by the way. Very, very good indeed. We saw her a few weeks back. A few months ago, sorry. Calvillo looks very good, and Dana White was very pleased with what he saw as well. He said he saw a little bit of Joanna or Conor McGregor or Ronda Rousey even in Calvillo. I reckon she's going to be a real superstar, and you can see that, to be honest. But obviously there was more problems in terms of the weigh-in, and we'll talk about the weigh-in now. With the commission, the fact that there was a lot of media speculation yesterday, or Friday, that the Calvillo-Rodriguez fight was not going to go ahead because Rodriguez had breast implants, which was confusing to a lot of people. And to be fair, in the commission, in the rule book, effectively, there is a section which says that Rodriguez probably shouldn't have fought, because it is in there. It is in there that you cannot compete with breast implants. However, the wording of it says boxers. This is quite clearly a rule for boxing, which just shows how long ago it was since they changed the ruling in the commission. They've not even bothered to add fighters into there, which speaks volumes, really. But there's a lot of confusion throughout the day. At first, it appeared that the fight was off, although nothing official came, which is what Dana was quite upset about. He blamed the media in the press conference after the fights for making this a story. But by all accounts, and this is coming from Helwani and a number of other reputable sources, the fight was originally going to be off, and then the commission met with Rodriguez's medical team, and they had to medically clear her to fight. So, just a lot of confusion there. You know, I mean, obviously, why was this a story the day before the fight? I mean, if this is a rule which has been there for a long time, then surely it's something they should have looked at straight away. You know, I'd like to think they did, but the way it came out, who knows? But again, just some silliness from the commission and everyone involved, really. Just things just need to be clear, and I don't understand why there cannot be some kind of reform between all the state commissions. Just get something done. Just get some rules, some regulations for all 50 states, and just come together. They don't have to be complex. Just use some common sense. That's all we require. And sticking with the weigh-in, I don't want to dwell on it too much, because obviously we saw the fights happen. You know, it's in the past now, but the weigh-in was strange. You can't deny the weigh-in was strange. Dan Cormier walks in with 3 or 4 minutes left on the clock. Weighs in. He didn't look good. He didn't look great, to be honest with you, but he walked in. Weighed in at 206.2, which obviously would not have made it a title fight. You know, that would have been a huge blow to the pay-per-view. Not having that as a title fight, and obviously, it meant DC could have lost the title, obviously. And then he comes back in 2 minutes later, holding the towel, not having the towel hold up for him, I will add. Think of that what you will. And then suddenly weighs in dead on 205. And it's a title fight again. Everyone's happy. Rumble Johnson walks in, weighs in at 203. Job's a good one. Really strange. And, you know, Cormier blames the scales for not weighing properly. I mean, they'd been fine for all the other fighters. I mean, he was pretty much the second last fighter to weigh in. Yeah, they'd been fine for the rest. So, yeah, a little bit strange at the end there of the weigh-in, and I don't want to speak too much into it because obviously the fight's happened now, it's in the past. But something to keep an eye on. That did look a little bit suspect, and the fact that at the end of the day he lost 1.2 pounds in literally no more than about 45 seconds a minute. Yeah, it's a little strange, that. Really a little bit strange. But anyway, next up on the pay-per-view scene is 211. of course, which looks absolutely stacked. A huge card in Dallas, Texas, headlined by Junior Dos Santos taking on Stipe Miocic for the World Heavyweight Championship. That's going to be a huge one, and look out for our full preview of UFC 211, which will be up probably next week. We're going to run down that entire card. I mean, the main card looks like it should be the best of this year, depending on what they pull out for International Fight Week in June or July. That may be July. I'm not too sure. But, yeah, that looks an incredible card. We're going to run it down from top to bottom. So thank you very much for listening. This was our review. I apologise for UFC 210. Thanks for listening. Cheers.